So we need a motion to open the meeting.
Do we? No, you can just open the meeting, Bill,
Roll call.
and we'll do a roll call. I don't know, I never did a motion to open
No.
anything, so.
Okay, well, that's my mistake. We'll just get right into it then.
Open the meeting and do a roll call.
All right, I'll declare the meeting open and let's do a roll call.
Where do you want to go? Around the table, Veronica Cal present.
Michael Brown, present.
Natalie Cal present.
Greg Smith, present.
Robert Therian, present.
Bill Cadigan present. That's it? All right. So I did a little bit of work since the last meeting. I sent, Sabrina sent you guys some copies. I was looking at the noise ordinance, so I went into the E-code, whatever it is. Can't remember the name of the function, but it's the one that looks at all the E-coded bylaws in Massachusetts. And there's quite a few different noise ordinances. So I've got one Word file that's just excerpts from the first, I don't know how many that I got to. And then what I did on I inserted a page in front of that list that's that I'm putting up as a tentative towns and noise ordinance for discussion, obviously. But you can see from the pages 2 through whatever it is, you can see all the different approaches people have taken. And being a nerd, I'm actually fond of the ones that look at the decibel level at the property line. So I stuck one of those in there. And the other thing that's bugging me is these private shooting ranges that are basically nuisances. They're people doing rapid fire ammunition, which really, if you're doing target shooting, you're not doing rapid fire, and my only suggestion is they go to Ukraine where they can use people that want to do rapid fire, kill a few Russians for me. But otherwise, I don't think there's a place for that sort of activity in the residential district. I mean, obviously you have the gun clubs, but I know I hear the gun clubs and they're nothing like this one particular nuisance that we've got that I wanted to deal with. So I don't know where the rest of the committee is on this particular issue, but I guess my suggestion would be that you guys look at the research and look at the tentative thing and
Do we have a bylaw on it now?
No, I don't believe we have a noise ordinance.
We don't have a noise
I
bylaw at
don't
all?
believe so. When you pulled up the E-code, did you see any, Bill? Is Bill frozen?
Yeah. Have there been complaints in the building
what's his
department?
name?
You were frozen, Bill. We didn't hear anything that you said for the past minute or two. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Bob was talking. Go ahead.
I'm saying I'm pretty sure there's no Townsend noise ordinance at this time.
Right. Have we gotten complaints, or is it something, I'm questioning the priority of reviewing this right now.
Well, for me, I know exactly what firing range Bill is talking about because it happens frequently on Meadow Road. You can hear Meadow, Adams.
We're having complaints now?
I get called complaints to me.
Really?
yes.
Okay,
And in any event, there is a person in the Meadow Road area who has a private shooting range going on in their backyard.
really?
And it is not boom. It's,
Yeah.
they're shooting something. And it's disturbing. We don't live we can't even hear the gun club from where we are,
Right.
so it's one thing if you know that you're living by a gun club or a
Right.
sportsman's club or whatever.
So
It's another thing, hunting in the woods is fine, but people aren't hunting in the woods with automatic,
and
or
particularly not
semi-automatic.
year round.
right?
So
And it includes Sundays.
what we know about the complaints, is this a private person or
I
is this
believe
a
so.
club?
I haven't
Yeah.
walked out in the woods to see exactly who's shooting because I don't think it's a good idea.
Oh, I mean,
Um,
that's another issue is that they're using probably AR-15 type ammunition, which isn't even legal for hunting in Massachusetts. I mean, deer season is shotgun and bows and arrows. So
It was this past Sunday and the
So
Sunday before. And my recommendation
and I
was to
stuck
call the
that
police,
piece.
but there's no ordinance.
Well, I called the police and I talked to the police
Okay,
chief
then.
about it, and he said basically there's nothing that they can do because it's private property and there's no noise ordinance in the town of Townsend. So, but the thing I stuck in there was that if it's a private shooting range, it has to be inspected by the chief of police or whatever. So I think that would go a long way from the safety point of view. Because it doesn't take. I mean, these AR-15 bullets, man, they'll fly for miles and still have plenty of energy left to hit somebody. So if you get a ricochet off a rock because you don't have the right backstop material in your shooting range, you got it's your neighbors that have a problem, not you.
Well, wouldn't it make sense, not knowing the different types of shooting configurations or profiles there'll be, that maybe it should be allowed with a special permit so the town has an opportunity to review what's going on and put some, requirements or, in other words, there should be some kind of permit required, I think, so that, I'm thinking maybe something in the order of not being allowed without a special permit. And that way the town has an opportunity to oversee or see what's being discussed and planned and look at it in terms of safety as well as noise and anything that would be detrimental to the town. I would like to propose that we consider that.
I would be opposed to that for private residences. I'm good with that for commercial, if it's a commercial enterprise.
Okay.
But if I don't think it's, at least I wouldn't be in favor of having a special permit for a private residence, because then you get into, they got
That
it, I
wasn't,
didn't.
that wasn't my intent. No, I agree.
Well, and the other issue there is the Supreme Court has struck down pretty much every gun ordinance that's been put up there. So whatever we do, it can't look like a gun ordinance, and I think the noise is the way to go.
Right, and if you say we have no noise ordinance, maybe you start very broad, because I thought we did. I thought we had noise ordinances, but I'll have to check. I didn't find it, that you can't start construction before 8 a.m. or things like that. So you could go very broad.
Well, I think as far as this committee goes, I think we can put some requirements, like when it's allowed or not allowed. I think we could have some requirements on decibels, which is a very scientific
Yeah, exactly,
quantity
Measurable.
number.
Should be measured.
Right,
measurable. Yep.
right, and, I don't know how I personally could determine how many decibels was existing or not at a particular complaint. So I don't know how effective.
Definitely something
There's
that'll
ways
measure
to
that.
measure.
Yeah,
There's some inexpensive meters. I've got one on the market. So, you know, even
maybe
if
we
they're,
can.
if their accuracy is only 10%, they're at least in the ballpark, you know, so you know whether you have a case.
How about if it might be more simple to deal with it in a realistic term? If more than one complaint comes in a month or something like that, that they would have to do something, whatever.
Nobody's going to count that. In other words, nobody, oh, there's been one a month. Now we're going to restart our count.
Yeah.
I think we just do a noise ordinance. If whatever it is that's happening is too loud, you can't do it.
I know, but the question we have is what is too loud? What is a decibel? Who determines? How far is it heard from where? I just don't see.
Well, it's right in here. No, in no case shall such noise exceed 65 decibels at any property line. And I'm sure there's research, and someone can probably help us. I see there's someone from MRPC on, because I'm sure there are other communities that have these sorts of things. That's where
Right,
Bill got all this stuff.
right, and I
So
appreciate that.
so I am good with that, and you measure it at the property line.
So
If it's,
the only issue I'm aware of with setting an absolute decibel level, everywhere you go has an ambient noise level.
Right,
And I've been involved in a case where I used to work where we were doing work in the town of Littleton, and they had an absolute decibel noise level restriction. And where we were working, the noise from the highway 495 was louder than their town limit. So you have to be very careful when you start talking about specific decibel limits.
You can reference
You can
background
reference
levels.
above.
It can be done.
Above ambient noise level and.
There's how
Terry,
they-
Yeah, there's some of the
Terry just-
samples I picked, they deal with ambient noise level.
Yes.
So the state has
I
a
mean,
regulation.
I think that Townsend is kind of blessed because we don't, except downtown on the Common, we don't really have much ambient noise. But I mean, the Common is horrible for all the road noise, but elsewhere in town,
But
it's
the
pretty
state,
quiet.
as Mike
So
was saying,
the state has a noise regulation. We had to look at exactly who it applies to, but it could maybe be another starting point.
Yeah, some towns have triggered off the state reg. I didn't even bother to look at the state reg yet to see what they say. But okay, I mean, you know, as Robert said, this is not the highest priority we could be dealing with, but I think we've kind of tossed the ball around, and I think if people think about it and look at the written material that I provided or whatever, come up with suggestions, we can deal with it again at a future meeting. I mean, there's the earliest that we could pass a bylaw is annual town meeting, correct? So we have plenty of time to refine this thing.
and the state does, with their definition, just so that you know, they define the decibel level at the property line, but they also talk about the ambient sound level and how you calculate that into the decibel level, how you defined it. So it's already predefined by the state what the noise level is determined, and you know how to define it, and it does mention ambient noise level. So we don't have to create it; it's already been created by
so
the state.
is that a regulation that the town would need to accept? There's a lot of
Right, yeah,
regs
that's what
like that.
I'm
that-
just saying, you can
And-
use it to
right. So
define.
We have two conversations here. One, the complaints are coming from, complaints that we're aware of in the community are coming from guns.
Well, also from, little,
Lawnmowers and the blowers.
riding
leaf
around,
blowers.
riding around.
Yeah,
your
recreational
kids on your
vehicles,
little
that's a
ATV,
big one.
riding
Well, I have one of
around.
those too,
But I
so
do
I'm
hear
guilty of that,
complaints
but.
about the blowers as well. Like they feel that under the Massachusetts law, it should
But
be.
I see that surfacing more in very suburban communities. You know what I mean? I'm not aware of that kind of complaint.
Yeah, I have personally
In town?
received from more than one person.
Oh, really?
About complaints
And,
early in
and,
the
and
morning.
what were they? Do you remember?
Blowers, leaf
The leaf
blowers at
blowers?
7 a.m. on a Sunday morning when they're
Okay.
trying to sleep in, and they pulled up this regulation and said, noise ordinance says you can't make an ambulance noise before 9 o'clock.
Okay, so
Tree
that,
services
all of this
cutting
means
early in the morning.
we need to address a noise ordinance, okay? And one of the sources may be to
Just say.
use the state as a standard.
Yeah.
And in that, some time restrictions on when those noises are acceptable or allowed.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not sure if we have the state definition already. I think we can feel confident in using that as our standard as a minimum, right?
Yeah.
And then on the gun issue, because that's a type of noise complaint and probably why we need to look at that. Again, I think we have to think of a way to create a standard based on the magnitude of gunfire. In other
Well,
words, how
I don't
much of
know
it
that
is?
I would even go there. I think if we can just go with noise, where if there's a complaint, the police have something that they can reference.
Because where guns are involved, there are rules associated with being able to shoot on your own property, setbacks and
Right.
distances from a structure,
Right.
that kind of thing. And then there are guns that are allowed by the state for an individual to own. So if you meet the gun range requirements and you own a legal weapon,
So we can rely on the noise.
I would
I
say
think
that's the
so.
way to go.
So just limit it to a noise
And there
ordinance.
might be ways in the noise not to outright do the gun, but I remember checking this when the person had called me about the blower. They were like, it's constant. It's like from, it doesn't stop. It's constant from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it's like they never shut it off. I'm like, poor guy. I felt poor guy. Very bad for the guy with the leak. But the ordinance did mention like how long it lasts too, not just the pitch, but it has to be like breaks. Like you can't have constant, persistent noise at that level. So you can hit this decibel, but then it has to lower. You can't stay there, or you can set a time frame. You can hit this decibel, but you can only be at that decibel for 15 minutes.
Okay,
Lisa, do you have a number for that?
Yes, I do.
ordinance?
so let's see if this could work. If we could adopt the state standard as a minimum, control the time on noise, which would encompass blowers and lawnmowers and working and any other kind of construction noise, may be inadequate. At least we have an ordinance to start with, and then we can see how effective that would be. And then modify it later if we need to.
I think I would like to read that
Yeah.
bylaw and at our next meeting, talk more about it.
Okay.
I think,
We'll have it printed
just
out.
so
Yeah,
that,
Send it, I'll put it on
and then
SharePoint.
see whether
Yep.
that's adequate.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Are you guys good at accessing SharePoint?
Axing what?
We can't do
No.
SharePoint
they
here
can't.
because we
Okay.
don't have I can't
Okay,
even
I'll
access
just print it
anything
out for the
shared.
next meeting.
Just forward the number even to all of
Okay.
us, that's all, and we can look it up online.
I'm mentally
exactly.
challenged with a lot of this stuff, so.
But just for the minutes and for the records, it's the Common Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection Noise Control Regulation 310 CMR 7.10.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Maybe we can all get an email with that as a download.
I can certainly do that. I can do that right now.
You mean homework?
Oh, yeah, I know. I got it up already. Okay. Well, thank you, Bill, for presenting this.
No problem. It's better than complaining.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what my second item on the agenda was. Anybody looking at the agenda, Beth? Are you?
The accessory apartment bylaw.
That
Oh,
was-
yeah, okay.
And then the other one,
Corrections.
the other one is something that's really, I feel under the gun, is this overlay district stuff that's coming up.
Oh, for the formerly
Yeah,
formerly known as
Yes.
DHCD.
I have so much to
Yeah.
tell you about that, and,
Right. So I was
So-
wondering if we could take it out of order because we do have Jonathan Voss here with us. He is from MRPC, and he is helping the town draft the overlay district bylaw. So is it possible to take that one out of order, Chairman Cadigan?
Yes, no problem.
Okay.
Go
Yep.
for it.
All right. Jonathan, what do you have?
All right. Well, thank you for letting me intrude on your meeting about noise ordinance. Much more fun subject. So currently we're in the position, the working group in the town is kind of settled on 3 potential sites for an overlay district to be at. And now we're working on language in the draft bylaw. There's another working group meeting tomorrow to go over it again before the DLTA contract period expires at the end of the year. But we thought, hey, you guys are a bylaw review committee. Makes an awful lot of sense for you to take a look at it. There is an early draft that in large part was based off of some draft language that other communities were exploring and was submitted for the state for prior review. Unfortunately, when they got it back, it was sans comments. So
Usually verbose state was silent, huh?
yes, and so not necessarily as much input as we might have preferred on there on where we have to be especially careful with language, because there are some areas where you have to be careful with language.
What?
But
Give me an example. Can you give me an example of that, Jonathan?
Well, part of it was with the absolute constraints of the 15 units per acre density, including any language such as the minimum density, or one community included the maximum density shall be no more than 15 units an acre. Straddled the line is if that was encouraging any potential development to be under the threshold density amount versus putting in language that emphasized that the minimum density requirement for any overlay district would be 15 units an acre.
But for our purposes, though, isn't Title V going to be the defining constraint on how many units an acre it is?
Bill, I'd like to
yes, and
put some commentary on this. And again, this is from a personal perspective on things. And again, that it's up to the town to decide what they feel comfortable with. Some of the things I see here, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm opposed to what the intent of this bylaw or of this overlay district is. But in a practical sense, and thinking of what the intent was to have communities along this district have an area of town where there could be high density housing. I mean, that's pretty much the intent. And there's a lot of language in there about affordable and different types of family profiles and things like that. So if the intent is to achieve those things, then it has to be looked at in a realistic, practical way. So if it's not a realistic program, it's never going to happen and it won't meet the intent. Okay? So some of the things that I see here, I have astounding questions on. One, where did the number 15 come from? Okay? Because it has nothing to do with the construction industry at all. All right? Point one.
I think it's state required.
Excuse me. I know it's state required. All right? I do know this is state required, and I've been working with the planning board on this topic of trying to implement it, and came up with alternate solutions that would make some sense and be compatible where we could achieve it. However, when I approach the state on it, all right, they're unrelenting on what their requirements are. In other words, I've presented opportunities where we could collectively meet the requirement by using other areas in town collectively. This legislation says, no, it all has to be in one specific spot. Well, I don't think that applies to all communities on the same basis, particularly when we have resources here to do something that would be more harmonic with our town, okay? Point one. Point two, even looking at what's being presented here today, if you had an opportunity to look at it.
I can screen share it if you'd like. Do you want me to
Yeah,
screen
that'd be
share?
good, would you, Beth?
Okay, let me see if I have that capability. Ah, host disabled. Who's hosting? Is it
Yeah.
Hartley?
Yes, Hartley, can you please allow Beth?
I
to
just gave Beth that capability.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
So the thing that's been presented, it just has definitions and all those things on it. And it shows the intent of what they're trying to do. So in terms of what's the focus here is to have an area in the town that would allow for high density housing. The standard here of 15 units per acre is a standard you would see in an urban area. So it's basically saying in every town along this MBTA district, we have to create an urban density area. Okay, so in discussing all these different locations that we got down to 3 now, okay, was an ongoing, progress and work from our committee. And we looked at different areas of town and there were some great resources there that could have been used. So now we're looking at these 3 remaining ones. And the one that I see is most practical and most realistic for the intent here is the one near my backyard at the end of Route 13 going to Lunenburg. And that really does seem like the wisest one, okay? The state would like us to have 5, 10 of them, okay? So that's what the state is doing. They kind of want us to say, not only one, but, you know, for the future, we're going to give 2 or 3 or more different overlay districts, okay? So, but anyway, just assuming we're going to do one, and just knowing that by 2025, we have to designate an area that can accommodate 85 units. Is that correct, Beth?
Jonathan, it's much more than that, right?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it's
so the required multifamily unit capacity that Townsend has to zone for is 178.
Okay, 178.
Okay.
Yeah, that's down from a lot that it was when the.
Well,
750,
Right.
yes.
A lot.
it's still
Thank God we don't have an MTA
50
in it.
units per acre.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so in here, I just casually looked at this 2 hours ago. So maximum height of 3 stories. Okay, that works. We have ladders that can go building up to 3 stories. What doesn't work, I see, and if we implemented what's presented here, I don't think it would ever become a reality anyway. All right. So, and other people have presented things to me, and including people representing the state, that don't worry, we have control. We control it through zoning. We can control it through our infrastructure and all these other things. We just want you to give us an area. So it sounds like it's nothing to get excited about. Well, this law came without us even knowing about it. There's nothing preventing some legislation in the future saying you have to mandate and provide the water and the sewer for this. So I just want people to realize this law came down without us any knowledge or any input for anybody else other than the state. All right. So if they can do that, they can do whatever they want. And I don't want to hear it's the law.
But it is.
That's correct. And it wasn't a law that we were aware of.
That brought this in.
Or-
We were aware.
And I don't see how this law is beneficial for our town in any capacity. What is the town getting out of it?
That's not our place, right? Just like, let's just take, for example, the legalization of marijuana and the fact that we have to have in this town areas that are legal to dispense marijuana. That's the law. We might not see how that benefits anybody in this town, how it's even appropriate. We might be completely opposed to the law, but we have areas in this town designated for marijuana dispensaries.
Right.
And as such, we have been very good in controlling that dispensaries don't get put in the town,
Mhm.
but we still uphold the law.
Okay, but I'm just giving you a lot of personal reaction to this,
I
okay?
get it.
I'm not representing the
I
town.
think everybody's
people
had
here,
that
all right?
reaction.
However, listen, I'm 75 years old. What's going to happen 10 years from now really is not going to make a huge impact on me. But what I am trying to tell you is I have personally tried to find good solutions to meet
Yeah, I
their
understand.
intent, okay? And I'm very upset that the state refuses to consider any alternatives. You know, that's the frustrating part of this. Because it's a blanket thing, every community is the same, and they're not, all right? But regardless of that, we still have a responsibility here. And so I'm trying to work with the town so that we do not find ourselves in trouble with the state. And as much as I think, but I do want the people to know there are other communities in the Commonwealth that have the same attitude about what's going on. However,
Oh, yeah.
let's look at what they're proposing here, all right?
Can we hear what
Yeah.
Jonathan has to say, and maybe
Yeah.
that will
That
help
would
us?
be good. No, there are towns that are thumbing their nose at the governor on this one, but you know, there are much wealthier towns that can afford to lose out on the goodies that the governor's promising the towns that comply. But you know, I mean, it's like fighting the old expression, you can't fight City Hall. I mean, you can't fight the DHCD or whatever they call themselves today. It's a one-size-fits-all law that they've been working with for 50 years now, the 40B law. And so they're used to this top-down method of government, and they're not going to change for us.
All right,
Which
They did
is,
go back and reevaluate communities after the first initial pass of the law.
well, I just,
And we were downgraded,
Right.
if you want to call it that,
Right.
as far as density goes.
right, so my point on that whole subject is, these people didn't do the due diligence in preparing the law to begin with, all right? They just picked an intent and worried about the problems later, okay? So if this was thought through initially, I don't think we'd be having this much problems and resistance. But beyond all that discussion, let's just focus on what's being presented here. And I want to point out to you why I don't think it's realistic and how it doesn't work. And so what I'm trying to do is send a message to the state that we can meet this intent if we have more latitude. And different towns have different resources to deliver the intent. Okay? So as a point today, I have in front of me the dimensional standards that you all should have a copy of. Okay?
Is it on screen?
it is. It
Yeah,
is.
it is. And could
This
Jonathan
is-
present?
All right, this is the draft bylaw. So I just want to emphasize that a little again. This is a draft. We are
Who prepared it?
capable of changing every point of this. MRPC, myself, MRPC originally came up with it. There's been some incorporation from feedback that was heard from the working group about vegetative standards, some setback requirements, a little bit of discussion about parking. And where we spent most of our time working on discerning which area in the community would be best served by the overlay district, and then afterwards we've been developing this as well. And now that we have a final selection, we can better craft the draft bylaw to address whichever one of those ends up becoming the final determination of the community for the overlay district.
Can I just add something here, Jonathan? There also was a public survey opened that all of you should have hopefully received the link to. And in that public survey, I believe there's a question about wording that might be important to you in the bylaw, in the draft bylaw for the districts, to the overlay districts. So I just wanted to add that. That is still open, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, we have not closed that, and we are more than happy to leave that open as long as Townsend wants us to until the end of the contract.
Oh, thank you.
I have a question. Have you considered just incorporating some of our site plan review conditions that we, the boilerplate, like, vegetation, parking places per unit, stuff like that? Because if it's as of right, we can't force them to do a site plan, but we could put the requirements in the as of right district, seems to me.
Yep, that is something we have gone over and
Okay.
is being looked at. We'll probably discuss it in more depth at the working group meeting tomorrow.
Another question, have you guys done any research on these sites as far as perk rates and what sort of soils are involved at the sites?
Yes, that's why these three were
Okay.
ultimately selected, is they had the most tenable environment for any more higher density development that would happen. Some of the sites we were looking at earlier had some very prominent concerns in terms of soil grade, water impact on the watershed, slope gradients.
Right.
So that all of that has been taken into account, and we had oh God, the name is slipping from me right now. But yeah, it did come up in the working group several times, and that's how we made this determination on the 3 districts.
Okay, can I just want to bring this group of people up to date.
Mhm.
There are 177 communities involved with this overlay district law. Townsend has a unique opportunity. We have more resources than 80% of the communities in this district. So, what's been reviewed by the planning board and this progression of reviewing different locations and coming up with these final 3, I want you to be aware that the final 3, and particularly the one that I mentioned at the end of Route 13, those are perfect sites. Most towns cannot offer a perfect site. Also, because of the town's resources, we are in the unique opportunity to deliver an ideal site, but not under obligation. Okay? So what I'm proposing to you is the sites that have been presented or recommended to a review are the most ideal ones. So, with the consultant that the planning board had and reviewing the different locations in town, what you see before you now is the product of all that study and analysis. So, yes, other areas could, would, should, could, or impact the aquifer, or other conservation areas, or other things. But I want you to be aware of 177 communities in this overlay district. Most of them are going to have more restrictive stuff than we have. Less resources than we have.
What do you mean by resources? What kind of resources?
Well, for example, let's say you're at the town of Braintree, which my understanding has to produce 3,000 units.
Right. And they
Okay.
are probably, it depends on how close you are to the line, whether you're an adjacent
Okay.
community, a rural
So
adjacent.
the town
et
of
cetera, et cetera.
Braintree has resources that we don't have, okay? They have water and sewer, okay? But they don't have 100 acres of land in one spot to put it all in one location. All right? So what I'm trying to present here is every town has different resources to achieve the intent here. Townsend and what's happened with our consultants and what we've, as a planning board, are offering for consideration here is an idyllic one, meaning that we don't have to give our most idealistic property as an overlay district. Okay? I'm not proposing either way. Personally, without my personal involvement in it being in my neighborhood, and if I was going to look for the best location that Townsend could offer to meet the intent of this, I would have to say at the end of Route 13 where I live would be the best for the MBTA. Okay? And why? It's closest to Fitchburg. There's more potential resources for water development and supply coming from Lunenburg's side, as well as our side, because we do have water going up almost to that end of town, available in Townsend. Okay? And the land there is undeveloped. Almost all three sites that you're looking at here is properties that are virgin land. Most of them, most of those areas. So I'm like not happy that we can't use other areas in town where their use has expired or is no longer of value to break this up into different groups. All right. So here today, we have some standards that we would look at if we were looking for an overlay district. And here we're looking at this from a very physical, two-dimensional perspective. Okay? This, in terms of Townsend, one of the things that I was hoping to do by considering other sites and considering properties that are already been developed and are not being utilized or not productive anymore, I had really hoped that we could deliver the 85 units by using different things without having everything congested in one area and making a huge visual impact on the town. So I wanted to do that in a way. And on our zoning board now, we're discussing other bylaws here about scenic ways and other things about preserving the character of the town. And so in the new language that the planning board is looking at, we're looking at things like how to, preserve certain things, agriculture, prepare, and looking at the differences and definitions of
Excuse me,
heritage.
Robert, but I think you're getting off the track here because
I'm sorry.
we've got our consultant on board. We'd like to maximize the use of his time, and
Okay, I appreciate that.
I hear that you're making sense, but my experience with the DHCD is that we have to figure out the best way out of this. That that keeps them off our whatever.
Yeah, that keeps Townsend in good graces.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the bylaw, there are two definitions in C1 and C2, affordable unit, affordable housing. How are those incorporated into this bylaw? Because I don't see an affordability component. And personally, I would like to see an affordability component in here, either as far as X percentage of these, I know it's an overlay district, but and maybe this isn't the place that you put it, maybe it's somewhere else in our bylaw review, but I would like to see a certain percentage either required to be affordable or that you're required to pay into a fund for affordable housing for the town. So in other words, I would like to see inclusionary zoning in that respect. So is that in here, Jonathan, or what's the best way to get something like that in here?
The best way to prove that off the top of my head, and not being the most significant expert on bylaw language by itself, would be to have a excuse me for a second, permissible a possible permissible uses section, which requires permissible uses or performance standard section, which requires a certain amount of affordable units to be constructed in any development. In this case, it could go up to 10% without having any additional requirements on the community to enable that.
So can you define C.2 for me? I don't get that definition at all.
C2 is just clarifying that affordable housing is any of these multifamily units that contain an affordable unit as described above that.
I think that their basic problem is if they want it to be as of right, they can't require any affordable housing. Because that's not as of right. It is
the one caveat is to the as of right is Townsend can include a mandated requirement of 10% of any multifamily housing that is developed within this overlay district would have to be affordable. Going above that requirement requires an economic feasibility assessment to be performed to show that it doesn't place an undue burden on any developer.
Yeah.
Is that 10% in here, Jonathan? This draft bylaw?
It is not in this. No, it is not in this section. That is language that can be rather easily included.
Would that be in section D, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think that would be great to include it, but I'm a little concerned about the question I would have is, has anybody worked the numbers on this and found out how expensive these multifamily units would be?
They're going to be very expensive.
The answer to that ultimately comes down to whatever any developer wants to sell them for. Given the housing shortage in Massachusetts and the length of time we're looking at in order to meet that excessive demand, even with the rising interest rates, as I'm sure people are well aware of, there's no. It's not really something that can be addressed in the bylaws itself in terms of what any of these houses would sell for.
Yeah, I just wondered if anybody had done some, seat of the pants calculations on what they would have to sell these things to make a reasonable profit.
Well, that's kind of the point here. If you look at the standards that have been presented here, I'm just gonna keep this simple. Let's just say this is 1 acre of land. All right. So in this bylaw, we have to generate 12 and a half of them. But in one, an acre of land is 42,000 square feet of space. In the bylaw, it says reduced parking requirement of 1 parking space per unit. That's about 180 square feet. And then,
It's 200 square feet in Townsend, Bob.
yeah, I know, but I'm talking about a minimum size. In other words, we could reduce that size for this district. So
We're not
the
gonna,
minimum parking physically would be 180 square feet. I know the standard is 200 in Townsend,
yes.
but even so, you take 42,000 square feet, you take 15 units times 200, it almost mandates with circulation to get to these parking areas, that these units have to be multi-story buildings. And now, the redeeming thing here is that all 178 units have to be in one specific area, is why these other standards are plausible. All right? So, side yard, 60 feet. Rear yard, 60 feet. Minimum lot width, 200 feet, which, okay, that's where everybody has to come in and out, obviously. And then maximum height for residential structures will be no more than 3 stories. So in terms of economics and in terms of affordable housing, yes, housing cost goes down the greater number of units. So if I were a developer, that would mean my best opportunity to make money here would to be build all 178 units at once. Okay? So that would be the most cost beneficial developer approach. So, and that generates another question. How did the 15 unit per acre come? Because an odd number is not a number that's used in the construction industry to begin with. You know, the whole industry is based on even numbers. But regardless, that's a developer's challenge, okay? So now, so all these other standards here would mandate that that whole project be done at once, pretty much, in order for people to, for a developer to make money, regardless of they're affordable or not. Okay, so now we're going to have 178 units that are going to be a density of 15 per acre.
Well, that's 5 3-story structures, basically. So that's
Exactly.
where they got the number.
Right, that's pretty much how it plays out.
And
So then the next question is, it's not just affordable. What about unit profile? How many are single units, like 1 bedroom? How many are 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom? So if we're not careful here, the developer is going to take the most beneficial route for him. And they all could be 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms or whatever he decides is the most economical to build. So in terms of housing, we can't just address affordable. I mean, you can put that in, you can put other kinds of housing programs in, all of which have their own parameters and requirements. All right. How do we know, or how does the town have a concern about the different family profiles that could be here? So do we have any say in that, or do we want any say in it? These are
We
questions.
have a housing production plan that can be referenced for things like that, for as far as what the town wants. So if
Right.
you're gonna look at that, you can go by that.
Right, so what we're doing is trying to incorporate those other components in addition to what's here. Okay?
I think we're getting into the weeds where we don't need to be,
Right.
is what I
Yeah.
think. I think
Yep.
we can pretty much say, there's a lot of X's in here, and I don't know if Jonathan is looking for fill-ins for the X's or if you're gonna be providing those for us.
Well, considering those are the areas where Townsend has the most influence on what this overlay district ultimately ends up looking like, as long as it meets the density requirements and the minimum multifamily units, which would happen by default if it meets those density requirements for any of these areas. Yes. Any suggestions coming from this committee and from the working group are going to incorporate as much as possible.
Well, my suggestion would be under C.2, that section X becomes section D. And if, and I would consider the 10% component affordable. Because if we're putting these in, we do want workforce housing. I think the town would want that. And putting 10% affordable in is the standard. And what I've heard in the housing network things that I've attended, most developers, you need to have at least 20 units to put 10 in affordable to make it cost effective for a developer, no matter what the size of the lot is or the number. It's pretty much 20 units to affordable, 18, market rate. So, and what you put in as far as, depends on the housing production plan, the RFP that goes out, if we're doing it from an RFP standpoint, or if they're coming in. So that's, depends on what's going on. But I would like to see an affordable component because I think we need that in town.
I agree.
And so I would put something like that under permitted uses.
All
So
right,
that's
so
my first.
How about age housing?
You can't put any restrictions on
that in this
outside
bylaw.
of the affordability. That is the only exception that is allowed in terms of use restrictions for any housing.
For MBTA community.
Okay, so let's think about the town in general here. There's a variety of different programs available to developers. So they come under different hats.
Don't go through the programs. Get cut to the chase. What are you saying?
The problem is, in other words, we want to come up with what is going to be most beneficial for the town, okay? Which is affordable housing, okay? Now there are other programs. So I don't want whatever we present here to be exclusive to one particular one, okay? So we have low income, we have affordable, and we have What is the other?
Senior housing.
Senior housing. So
Age
for
restricted.
I'm sorry, so there are different programs and benefits and things offered under each of those categories to developers. So in terms of what towns would want to do, is we want to be able to accommodate anybody that would need housing, in my opinion.
But it can't be mixed under one bylaw. Those other programs already exist, and it will exist, will continue to exist, but that is not under this
Well, you
bylaw.
got to look at that too, all right? So and my concern is if can we, or should we, put as many of these in this overlay district as we can?
This is for
What, Bob?
MBTA
I
communities
lost-
only.
I'm
The
losing
only,
track.
I'm sorry. The only thing that can be accommodated under that law is the 10% affordability. The 55 and over, all of that. If you want to buy market rate, or if you're a senior that has, that qualifies under affordability, you can purchase into this when and if it's developed.
Right.
So it's not excluding anybody.
Okay, so what we're seeing is state mandates for all these programs and another one. So that's what we're looking at. I need to be clear in my head. We're on the state mandate for these other programs, affordable low-income and elderly housing. In other words, and so, okay, so this is another one. My question is, can we use this to qualify for the other standards, or is this another level of density
We
housing?
can, for the subsidized housing inventory,
Mhm.
these units, if we do have affordable units that are sold as affordable, they should qualify under the affordable
All
housing.
right, so
inventory.
should we concern ourselves with not just identifying them as affordable only?
What do you
That's
mean?
all we can do, Bob. We don't have any choice. I mean, I don't know why you're going on about this, because the state says the only condition on this as of right development is affordability. So, and we'd like to do that. I think it sounds to me like the
Yeah.
board or the committee would like to do that.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I'm just wondering if there's anything else we can get out of it.
Well, we
I
have
mean-
we have 40B, but it's been many years since we've had a 40B application.
Right. And it's not,
I mean,
Knock
any
on wood,
affordable
you know, I
housing
mean,
in this would count towards the community's affordable housing in any applicable category. So it would count towards the 10% threshold for 40B. It would count towards all of those.
what?
Yes.
I'm amazed that we haven't had any 40B applications, and the last one we had got converted to a rental, which is really good for us because we get credit for all the units as affordable in a rental case. But nobody's come to talk to us about another 40B project. And we passed this age restricted housing bylaw like 2 years ago, which really is a carte blanche, really. Anywhere in Townsend you could build a age restricted house, and I believe the first instance is under construction now of a multifamily age restricted structure. So I mean, there just isn't any demand. I mean, there's demand for housing, but there's no demand for any of these programs that we've got going on.
Well,
And
why don't we
I think
focus on
that's a market issue. I mean, no contractor wants to build a 2-family or 2-bedroom house because the site costs are the same, and they make way more money if they build a 4-bedroom house. So, there's no demand in the commercial marketplace for what we're offering. And who knows what's going to happen with this particular multifamily as of right thing. I could see a well-heeled developer coming in and saying, "Hey, I can make some money, if I do the whole project, all 178 units." But I don't know. I haven't talked to any of the developers yet to see if they're excited about this or not.
Hey, this is all new to me. This first time I've seen this is this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Small technical comment, and some of you know I'm interested in outdoor lighting, G1. If we're going to talk about outdoor lighting, we should at least say that it has to comply with the existing outdoor lighting bylaw, and in particular, we don't want to say cutoff. Full cutoff would do it. Cutoff does not meet our requirements. So I think just saying full cutoff would be okay. Or reference
It shall not be full cutoff. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, they can't get permits without passing our laws.
So,
But I see it is there, so.
Would it make sense to just say it should comply with the town's lighting bylaw and reference the number for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can include that as shall comply with existing lighting, and then lighting requirements, and reference that specific bylaw itself.
Unless we have a fear that
All right,
was going to change.
I'm gonna propose changes to it.
So,
Okay, good.
We'll talk
I
about that
mean, but
later.
yeah.
So, Jonathan, your involvement sunsets at the end of December here and New Year's Eve or something?
The current contract that MRPC is providing technical assistance with is the DLTA program, which tentatively ends December 31st. We have a little bit of leeway to wrap some things up after that, but we can't be doing any significant work once that point is passed.
All right.
Jonathan, if I remember correctly, when we first started talking about this overlay district, you felt confident that mixed use would be allowed?
Mixed use is something that's allowed. EOHLC issued additional guidance on that. The difficulties with the mixed use is that you can't restrict any of the mixed use, so you can't make it only commercial. You have to, if you are allowing for multifamily mixed use, specifically, you have to allow for light industrial, commercial, and then you can go through at that point and pretty much line item a table of uses, but it is much more in depth. And some of the areas we were looking at beforehand, closer towards Pepperell, for potential redevelopment, we ran into some serious concerns with the existing aquifer overlay protection districts, and then also how future development would impact that if there was a need for septic and leach fields due to sewer restrictions.
Are you saying that we have to have a mixed use, or we can just say this is no mixed use?
No, you don't.
What I'm saying here, and I'm looking at this in a real, somebody's going to build this someday, okay? So, as a community, and we have a lot of people in a very dense area, it may make sense to allow a commercial use there as well. So, for example...
Oh, no, I don't understand that at all.
Well, let me explain it, all right? So, if let's say one of the other options, site options, was not just at the end of Route 13. There was another one on Old City Road, and another one further down on Fitchburg Road. So we have high-density housing, vehicles, and hopefully, because it's MTA program, public transportation as well. So the occupants in these buildings, if there's no commercial allowed, means that they'd have to leave the property to get a quart of milk. So we know they're going to be leaving the property for work and other activities. So if there was some commercial relief there, such as a convenience store or whatever a developer may determine may be a supportive commercial use for the people living there, such as a health club or whatever, that's talks about the quality of life in this area. And so it's our burden here to think about that, if that's something that makes sense or not. That's why the question, if it's allowed, because those kinds of activities.
No, I think that's, I mean, you've got a very high density residential use and you want to stick convenience. I mean, I don't see how that's going to work. I mean,
Well, I think it could work very well.
well, you're on District 1, for instance, you're right on Route 13, which has commercial zones, and somebody could take over that telephone company that seems to survive and never does anything, and turn it into a bodega to serve
No,
these
but
people.
if you're giving the developers opportunities, why not give them more opportunities if he can market this project and,
Yeah, well, we differ on that one. I'll give them an opportunity to build housing. I don't need a convenience store in the middle of my housing.
well, I'm presenting this to the town to think about, okay? So my point is, if I'm a developer and I have 178 units in a specific site, is it going to be something that would help me develop that property if I could allow other uses?
Right. It just so that you know, though, in the town of Townsend, one of the thing we constantly get looked at different types of property. If you do make it mixed use, one of the requests you're gonna have is for a dispensary. They're gonna say 300 people in a unit, and that would be an ideal market to put up a dispensary. So you gotta
All right.
think about
Well,
what
yeah,
do we
but there-
really want
but
mixed use, so we're
that's
gonna open
one
up, this
specific
might be a
use.
Pandora box.
Right, well, that would happen anywhere in town.
And I agree
Yeah.
with Bill, there are
Yeah.
other opportunities along Route 13 for commercial or light industrial.
So you would restrict it to residential?
I would, yes.
Yeah,
I
but
would agree with that.
All right,
Keep it-
I just wanted to present to
I'm
that.
a believer in the KISS principle. Keep it simple.
So there
I
are
mean-
3 properties being considered in this overlay district, is that correct?
And
Yes,
those have already
they,
been sent it to the
Yeah.
selectmen, and we have approved those as the 3 we
Yeah.
to concentrate on.
So what are their sizes? I don't remember off the top of my head. What are the acreage?
so the sizes for those 3 districts that we're looking at are 25 acres, 12 acres, and then 40 acres. And that's District 1 on Fitchburg Road. That's the 25 acres. There's the 12 acre parcel on Old City Road, And then there's the other 40-acre parcel on Fitchburg Road. That is the one with the water tower.
So does it make sense under E1 to say the minimum lot size shall be either 10 or 12 acres?
I think that you're on it right there. Minimal lot size would have to be
Well,
13 acres.
it really is a function of Title V, because if you make it a single lot, Ronnie, you're you're limited to,
This is an overlay district, Bill, and so we're looking at particular lots, I thought, that we are designating those
Right.
lots as being in the overlay district, and it will not be considered spot zoning.
right.
So if that's the case, do we say it's 10 or 12 because the smallest lot is 12 acres?
Well, no, the problem with that is that if you'd have to go to condominium ownership. You can't have more than one septic system per lot per Title V. So it has to
If
be,
we're looking at 15 units, Bill, we're looking at
There's no
someone
septic
putting in
system.
their
Yeah,
own,
right.
their own
There's
septic.
no way, right.
What I was told by the Board of Health, and this was in developing the housing trust properties, is if you have 12 units or more, you have to have your own water
Independent.
system and independent
Septic and sewer.
septic,
water
however
and
you
sewer.
get it in.
Right.
So I don't think that's a consideration
no,
here.
yeah.
It might be for other bylaws, but
Right.
not for this one.
No.
That's how I'm thinking this.
all right, well, I think we should get some expert opinion on that, because I mean, we have,
Jonathan is our expert.
King Arthur's,
Want to weigh in?
oh, I'm sorry.
With this.
We had
with
King
this-
Arthur's mistake up the top of the hill, and he was gonna build that property as a single lot with a single septic system serving on the order of 180 units.
With open swales, if I remember correctly.
Right.
But anyway, so what makes sense here, John?
Well, let's think about what this is saying.
Can we
all right?
let him answer that?
I suspect what it comes down to is the type of development. If Townsend is aiming to have someone develop a number of freestanding triple deckers, for example, just because I live in Worcester and they're all over the place, those could be done as smaller individual lots. But if the expectation is reasonably so that any significant development would be probably as a single condominium unit, then yes, having that much larger lot size to incorporate to capture all of that development in one go would be due to consideration. Yes.
So basically what this is asking is how much acreage the community wants to put into this program, right? So we're under the gun to deliver 178 units, which boils down to almost 12 acres of land.
Mm-hmm.
So what this is an opportunity for the town to decide, do they want to do more of this? So in other words, if you decide that lot's minimum lot size is 30 acres, all that acreage would be at 15 units per acre. You see, so this is basically saying how much area how much does the town want to support this overlay district? Okay, that's how I understand this. So two things are going to be happening, not only just this bylaw here that we're looking at, but when we come to the meeting on designating the overlay district, bear in mind, the town is going to be offered 3 districts, not necessarily with the intent to select one. The community could select all 3, okay? So what this is about is how many acres for any one that you designate. So if you designate 12 acres, it basically says in this overlay district, you need a minimum of 12 acres to do it. So if the town had 3 overlay districts, which is plausible, that standard would apply to all 3 districts. Everybody know what I'm saying here?
No.
Can
So
I?
if I could ask a question. So let's assume you have a 3-acre parcel. You want to use 1 acre of it for your 15-unit housing density, and then you got the other 2 acres.
Can't do it.
You can't do that?
No, because already,
Well, I'm asking Jonathan, because he's the expert here.
If you own the if you own land or someone purchased land that was within that overlay district, you are not necessarily obligated to develop all of it, because the overlay district still allows you to use the underlying districts. In this case, it would be residential zone, I believe, A. So you can still always use those requirements instead. So if you purchase the property, you could instead of developing multifamily mixed use multifamily housing, you could instead simply build single family residential housing if you wanted.
But you wouldn't get 15 units per acre
No.
if you did that.
No.
So if you did the 15 unit per acre density, does that have to include all the septic and parking and everything? It all has
It would
to fit
have
in
to.
that? Okay.
Yes.
all right. So, okay, so here's a district that we're going to designate, and let's say there are 4 property owners in there. So the town, by requirements, we have to produce 1 12-acre area. Within that 12-acre area, there could be 4 property owners or 5 or any number of them.
Mm-hmm.
So any number of them, any one of those property owners could go under this program
Yes.
to make up the units. So if somebody owned 3 acres within that big 12, he would be able to generate 35 units on his land.
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay.
But what about parking and offsets and all that?
Oh,
Does a developer have to file a subdivision plan for this?
Well, it is if they're using the overlay district, it is of right, but I believe they would still have to file any plans because of the the review process.
So it's still special permit, right? Site plan review.
No,
It's site plan review,
subdivision is
not
not,
special
it's not a
permit.
special permit, it's a
Right.
subdivision.
It's
Yeah.
just site plan
But
review.
that covers the roads. I mean, we haven't talked about the roads in and out of these things and, you know, where the driveways hit and all that sort of thing. I mean,
So if you're gonna put 15 units per acre, And then I'm looking at E10, structure size not to contain less than X number of units per each detached structure. So I'm thinking about what Jonathan said about triple deckers. So if you wanted to have triple deckers, 3 units per, you, in 1 acre, you would need 5 of those buildings,
Right.
correct?
Right.
Yes.
And so your minimum lot size for each building would be 1/5 of an acre? Is that how we're looking at this?
That's how the state is looking at it, yes.
Is that what we need to, or what you need to figure out here? Is that what we're
that
doing?
is in fact what we are trying to figure out with the with working on the bylaw. Yes.
So, so the minimum lot size is different from the minimum size of the overlay district.
Exactly.
Yes, the overlay
so-
district will have fixed parameters.
Doesn't work.
So,
Somebody's got a 300 lot, this other stuff.
so you have to have 15 units per acre. So structure size not to contain less than, to allow for triple deckers, if that's what makes sense. I mean, I don't know, you're looking at 1/5 of an acre then.
All right.
I don't think anything else makes sense, Ronnie, because of the 15 units per acre and the 3-story height restriction. You're locked into 5 structures, which you're going to be hard pressed to fit 5 structures on
Or you could do one structure, you know, we could say, well, it's, you know, if the minimum lot size is 1 acre, no less than 15 units per acre, then not to contain less than, it's really 15, if we're going that way.
Well, you're talking a single structure with
But
15
it's
units?
detached structure.
Yeah.
So I think what Jonathan says is right. What do we want this to look like? Do we want the big apartment buildings with, you know, several in 1 acre? Or do we want, you know, the minimum lot size is the building, I take it, or does that
No.
include parking?
It would have to
The
be the
minimum lot
lot.
size would be the property line.
Everything that you can fit.
Right. So,
And with one building.
Yeah, with
Not
one within
necessarily.
one freestanding structure. Yep.
so
But
if,
I think there may be building code issues with a structure that large, but I'm not sure.
well, let's just look
Poor
at,
Mr. Ramadan still hasn't rebuilt his apartment
And
house.
that's because it was cost prohibitive.
Right.
I mean, that's why that building never went up.
well,
Right.
if we look at all the standards that we're looking at tonight, and we think of this group as part of an overlay district, and each one of us is a separate owner, meaning that each one of us can stay there as a single-family home, or we can develop it for the overlay district requirements. Okay, so that, in other words, presenting this to town opportunity at a town meeting, all the people that are going to be impacted by this, one of the things you can say to them, well, now you have another opportunity to do something with your property other than having a single family home.
Only if you're in the overlay district.
Only
If
in the
you're
overlay.
not in the overlay
No, no,
district, so
that's
I
what
couldn't
we're
do that
talking
on
about. That's
our
what we're
property.
talking about, okay? So, now, okay, so I happen to be one of those owners. I have control and own a 4-acre lot, which says to me on the surface, I could get 60 units if I could do something with that lot. So 4 acres with the other requirements is what we have to deal with here. Side yard setback of 60 feet, rear yard setback of 60 feet, minimum lot width of 100 feet, all right? So what we do in E1 has to be put in some real context with all the other things, because
Mhm.
those districts are not, you can't assume it's all gonna be one lot, or, they're gonna merge lots and it's gonna be one developer coming in with 178 units. It's very plausible that three of those neighbors might together and be able to get 30 units or something like that. So all of that is so hard it's overwhelming trying to envision how all that could play out. Do you know what I mean? So that's what we're here to try to figure out. And I don't know what direction to go, but so this first question is the minimum lot size to qualify.
I,
I don't know what to put in for the X.
Yeah.
So if we say,
I think we should talk to some contractors and I will talk to some and see what kind of feedback I can get on some of those parameters. I think those setbacks are pretty high for,
Mhm. Those setbacks came from the existing residential setbacks in Townsend. So that's that is where
we have
those
15-foot
specific numbers
side
came
yard
from.
setbacks, so I
no,
we have a
So,
50-foot front yard setback, but there's no rear yard setbacks.
right, not 60 feet.
Sorry.
well, maybe
Hmm.
then the
What was the
minimum
one I
lot
have?
size should be 2 acres or 3 acres, depending on what the underlying zoning is. And then, I mean, would this make sense? If the minimum lot size is 1 acre or 2 acre, maximum density no less than 15 units per acre, so you could get 30 units in perhaps, depending on how you did it, I guess, and meet those setbacks. Because if those setbacks were taken by the underlying, then they would fit the underlying zoning, correct? Does that make sense?
I can those setbacks can also be adjusted so that you have the underlying for the residential, and then you have slightly modified setbacks to accommodate the higher density development if that is to be pursued in any of those areas. I think I heard 50 and 15 getting mentioned.
50 is the front yard setback in town.
Right.
15 is the side yard.
Bill, I don't know if you're allowing people from outside to speak, but Laura has had her hand up for a while.
Has she? I hadn't
I'm
noticed.
sorry.
Lori, did you have something to say?
No, I'm just listening. My hand wasn't up, and I'm
No,
finding
it is on our screen.
It does look like it's
That's
up.
probably somebody's mouse.
So, but I guess why not make it the underlying lot size then? For the minimum lot size, and then looking at the not to contain less than how many units per detached structure. I would go with 3, so you could put triple deckers in if you wanted. And if you could get it in 5 buildings, then you're within the, I don't know. You could have, does the lot go by, if you say it's 2 acres, can you only have 1 building on it? Or could you have 3 buildings?
For lot size, I believe what it ultimately comes down to is you wouldn't be able to subdivide any properties that's built to a smaller amount than that. So if someone were to come and purchase, say, a 5-acre parcel and build a street of triple deckers, they could subdivide that development and sell them all and sell those properties individually. But if the lot size is larger than that, if it's say an entire acre, then you're looking at a condominium development.
I think pretty much if you're gonna put in 15 units per acre, you're probably looking at condos, mainly because of the septic and water infrastructure right now, anyway, that would be required to develop that.
I think the state didn't make any comment on that.
They've very deliberately avoided making any comment on that. They are firmly of the opinion that that is a developer issue.
One of my original questions was, were they going to suspend Title V for this particular, effort? They didn't comment on that.
I think
They don't
that's a
want to
no. I think that's a no. You get
Well,
into health
I'm
issues.
sure they would
then.
love to do it if they could. I mean, look at 40B. They suspend all our zoning laws pretty much. So they could easily suspend Title V if they wanted to.
Yeah, but they didn't for 40B, correct?
No, 40B is still a subject to Title V, yeah.
Well, no. The thing here is whoever does what with any kind of project, they still got to meet the town's health requirements, and they still have to meet the, say, building code. It really has nothing to do with ownership, okay? That's just a legal document, whether it's land included or a condo or an apartment complex. And the zoning codes don't deal with condos versus apartments. It's multifamily. So I don't think those are issues that a developer will have to address. And we've been advised that way throughout with Jonathan, okay? So the town health department and zoning requirements and everything else and conservation all still are in position here. However, this first one, we have to think about if we have this, this is the one district that we're kind of thinking about at the end of Route 13 on the Lunenburg line, is about 12 acres of land. I don't know how many property owners are there, and how much or what percentage of that overlay district they would have control over. The thing about that property, there's not much there already. So, in other words, if I were looking at that as a developer, I might say, okay, I'm going to go 178 units. I'm going to buy out Tom and Susan and make the whole package one lot, okay? But the real reality is that overlay district is not going to be built all at once. And probably one portion of it will be done. And whatever that first portion of it does is going to impact whatever comes the future ones, the ones remaining. So
it's possible.
I'm thinking we probably might want a larger acreage here. So,
all right, well, can we agree to think about that? Because I don't think we're going to decide that tonight. And let's see. Jonathan, have you gotten anything useful from this today?
Actually, yes. Yeah, especially in terms of how to address any concerns going forward, especially in language that the working group will be maybe workshopping tomorrow.
Okay. All right, great.
Especially in terms of what do we want to think about with that lot size requirement, and there's language that can be done by doing it per dwelling unit. It could be, you could do it as a minimum lot size per dwelling unit, and then a minimum for any additional dwelling units on top of, say, the first three. And you can include a total number of how many units would be allowed to exist in each structure. And then for the parking spaces, we have the minimum of one, and then we can consider a total maximum allowed. And can also consider language, especially if we're crafting this for one specific parcel of the three that we have. You can also include a maximum number of dwelling units or multifamily units that could be created within this overlay district, as long as it allows for that 15 unit threshold to be met.
Okay.
So yeah, no, this was very helpful.
So you've got a what do you call it? A core group meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, there's a working group of
Working group.
mainly municipal staff. There have also been some planning board members that have been involved, and a member of the Board of Health and other contributing members over the last.
Okay.
Oh boy, has it been 6 or 7 months?
Do we need to get together before the end of the month? I'm addressing the committee now. To talk more about this, because I have some homework I wanted to do, but I don't know.
No.
Well, you see,
January.
item 1, E1 and E10 are probably what we should start with, because all the other ones will be related to what we decide on those. You know, in other words, E2 to 3E9, I think having the decisions on E1 and E10 would alter all those other E's. You know what I'm saying? So the first one is how big a lot should be allowed. And the second one is the number of units per each detached structure. Well, I don't know if that is something that we should even think about.
Someone has to think about it.
How many units in each detached structure? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I want to control that. I think I'd want the developer to determine.
Well, if you want to control the look of this this development, I think you do want to control that.
Well, if you're going to control the look of the development, then you got to add other things about architecture and you know,
No,
traditional style.
they won't let us do architecture. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a not less than as opposed to a not more than. And that makes a difference.
Sorry?
It's a not less than as opposed to a not more than. If it was a not more than, I think that's more controlling than a not less than, if that makes any sense. So you could say not less than 2 or not less than 3, you know, if you wanted it to be, but we're not saying, but you can't have 15 or 20, you know, we're not saying, it's a not less than as opposed to a not more than. That's all I've got
So
to
we're
say.
just saying you can't have single family houses.
Right, that's exactly what we said.
Yeah,
We can make
if you
it
wanted
2
to,
and make it,
yeah,
and it's not as controlling as saying, oh, you can't have more than, you can have as many as you want, you just can't have less than, so it makes it multifamily. In other
yeah.
words.
It makes it more like.
So that you couldn't,
Multifamily.
yeah, effectively so that you can't use the overlay district to build single family residential housing. If you want to do that, you have to use the pre-existing residential zoning. And
Right.
versus if you're doing the overlay, you have to build at least some
3.
Yeah.
some
That sounds
multifamily
good.
zoning.
I would make the E10X equal to 3 because we have zoning for two, essentially. So that's what I would do. And then that's not restrictive, other than you're not doing duplexes. You know, you have to have at least three. And we already have stuff
Well,
for
I'm,
twos.
I understand where you're coming from and
That's
it
where I'm
makes
coming
sense,
from.
all right?
Um,
But then the other part of this is like
The setbacks.
the setbacks and then, this, I'm like saying number 10, as far as I'm understanding this or trying to understand it, really, it's going to be high density, no matter what.
It
It
is,
is.
but you
Right.
can pick. You could have
I mean, I like,
five,
How are you gonna have
10.
high density with a fourplex here and another, I don't see how that could be
so
delivered, you know?
I like Bill's suggestion of talking to a contractor. What are the best ways to fit housing density into lot sizes with these kinds of setbacks? And are the setbacks, can we change them here?
Yes.
So I think, Bill, that was a good suggestion. We need some feedback from somebody that does this for a living.
Right.
There are a lot of affordable housing examples in Westford and Harvard, and the ones that I've seen that are the best as far as density goes are those.
Are you
And-
talking about the ones in Harvard near the Air Rotary,
Mhm.
those small houses?
No,
Pretty happy
they're
place,
off of,
isn't
they're
it?
closer
Yeah.
to Boxborough.
Okay.
There's it's,
Oh, yeah.
and it's kind of like right off the highway there,
Yeah.
not too far off, and there's, two different kinds. There's one that's got like 6 units in a single building, and there's 2 buildings of that. And then there's one that's lower
Mhm.
that has maybe 3 or maybe 4 apartments with, different numbers of bedrooms.
Yeah.
And those, they're kind of nice, and they aren't the huge, big, apartment buildings. And they're, in a small amount of space.
Yeah. Because a developer is gonna know how much space you're gonna need for parking and roads in and out and that kind of thing. So I think that's a good way to go.
Well, I think one of the ways we have to try to put this in a real image picture in our heads so that we can look at the parameters is to envision an individual that maybe owns 3 or 4 acres and see how these things would apply to that kind of scenario. Because, and if that works in like a 4-acre profile to see what could be generated there, because in reality, a developer to develop this, it would have to be done either in pieces or one developer come and take over the whole thing. So if it's developed in pieces, then that means we'd have to look at how achievable that would be for that one individual with 4 acres.
Another opportunity might be though, there are these projects going on now, like there's farms being brought up, bought, 100-acre farms
Mhm.
in Drake, Tewksboro, whatever, and trying to get these types of units. Maybe we can have an opportunity
Right.
to talk to people, like you said, Bill, that are already doing this in other towns and how they're doing it.
Right.
And they say, oh, no, we would never buy small units. We're going for the biggest farm we can, most units. Or they might say, you're absolutely right. We don't know. Right.
What I'm,
So-
what I'm
So
stressed
maybe
out
we
about,
can talk to the builder and inspector or somebody and say, how are they doing in Drake and Townsend and excuse me, Drake and Tewksbury? Because I do know there's over 200 acres that have recently been bought farmlands. They're buying farmlands.
And do we know how other towns have put these things into writing?
some others, there are. Let's see, I'm trying to remember which towns have already.
Jonathan probably.
I
There
think Concord.
Yeah, there are a number of towns. Arlington, Lexington, Concord have all submitted for designation early. And then you have all 12 of the rapid communities, which have to submit all of their plans by the end of the month. So yes, there are a number of ones that are actively seeking to submit their plans that should be either receiving feedback from the state this month or within the next several months.
Yeah,
What about,
it's probably not in the E code yet.
what about other communities like us, Jonathan, that are rural adjacent or whatever we're called now?
Like
There
Tewksbury,
are
what do they fall under? Because I know they're going through this, Tewksbury, Drake,
Well,
Kingsborough.
I'd like to know what Lunenburg's doing, what Shirley's doing.
well, Shirley is
Oh,
a
nice.
commuter
Yeah.
rails community, so they have more stringent requirements.
Right.
They have to build they have to zone for at least a significant portion of theirs to be built within proximity to the commuter rail station.
Yeah.
We're like a community once removed,
Mhm.
and then we don't have full infrastructure. We don't have septic, sewage, whatever, and we don't have full town water. So there are other communities like us, but not that many. Most people have at
Holden
least
is another town.
some sewage. That's what we
Well,
kind of lose out.
what's stressing me right now is I really feel we have to present this whole overlay district and the accompanying zoning bylaw for the town meeting in the fall.
No, in the spring.
Right, so not only do we have to present it for the town to approve, but we have to present it to the town ahead of time for them to know what it's all about before you go to the town meeting, because you can see how much time it takes on questions just on one topic here, in which it would never pass at town meeting unless the public's so fully aware and understands what it is to begin with. So we have a time pressure, and it's,
Well, we have a whole year to get this done, I believe, right?
Till the end of 2025. So Townsend has a little bit of time.
2 years.
I would go least restrictive on E10, and I would put that as 3. And then for E1, I would also go least restrictive. And I mean, if you're thinking about, you have to get it within, 15 units per acre, what makes sense there? That's what I would go with.
You can with the setback numbers.
The setback numbers need to be
They
adjusted.
adjusted, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I would go with.
And even if it's too small, if in the E1, if you use a number that's too small and it doesn't work with the setbacks or whatever, is there any harm?
No, yeah.
It just wouldn't be practical,
It wouldn't
but
be practical.
it would have to be bigger than X in the E1.
Yeah,
Mm.
and that would be
But we should
okay.
make something that makes sense, I guess, but.
Yeah.
Right, I mean.
Right. Something that's doable.
That's
I guess.
that is the saving grace of minimum standards. They can sometimes hurt you less. They're a
Anyway,
little bit more. They can be a little bit more flexible.
is there a meeting? Do we have to get out of here? Is there another meeting?
6 o'clock, I thought.
I thought another group had to
I
meet,
think they have it 6. I'm guessing. I don't know they would be here by now.
because it looks like it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Nobody's
6
yelling at
o'clock,
us.
Nobody's yelling at us.
I have to feed the dog.
I'll check.
All right, so I guess we gotta think about our next meeting and what we're gonna do for
We have
that.
minutes to approve?
Yeah, we
still?
do. We have minutes to approve for
So
October.
are we just tabling this until
Yes.
further notice?
Yeah.
See what the working committee
Yeah,
comes
there's a
up
Board of
with?
Health coming in here.
They would have been in here.
I
Oh,
don't know where
nobody
they
showed
are.
up
They might
yet.
be doing it all by Zoom.
I think they're downstairs though.
They probably
And
Yeah,
they,
yeah,
and
they're
they
probably
can
done.
use that room now.
Let me see where it says,
Are they in?
meeting room 2. So we
Okay,
got
so
that.
it's just a matter of,
I
But
think
they
we're all
probably
right.
need the report. I don't know how that works.
I don't know.
So corrections to accessory apartment bylaw. Is that-
Oh, I don't think I want to go through that at this point.
Actually, I don't think it's gonna be that
Let's save
bad.
that for next time.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll just bump that in, and I forgot one of them, but there's just a few corrections. I mean,
This is one surfacing thing. As far as the planning board goes, we have to modify the current language. Because we're having, people having problems with the language that's there.
So, if all of these are going to town meeting in May, can we back up? Because we have to have, don't we have to have, public hearings on anything that we're gonna change, correct? So
well,
for
yeah,
our
the
next
planning board has to
meeting,
hold a hearing. Yep.
could we have a timeline for when we have to have anything that we want to change available for public hearing, and then, any response from the public hearing to incorporate and.
The planning
I know it
board meeting
sometimes
has,
took us 2 rounds.
the planning board meeting, I think, has to be 2 weeks before the town meeting.
That's the final one, right?
Right.
If we,
The advertising has to be, I don't know, it has to be 2 consecutive weeks, 2 weeks before the planning board hearing. So that brings you back a month. So if we allowed 6 weeks, I think we'd have,
plenty of time. Okay, so
Enough
that means mid-March,
right.
correct?
I think we can do that.
So,
So is that the time, I mean, yeah, I don't totally understand what the timeline of this whole effort is. So we're gonna try to come up with proposed bylaws like in 3 months?
yeah, it sounds
Okay.
like that.
Good luck.
That's what it sounded to me.
Otherwise, we're wasting everybody's
We're gonna have to
time.
meet
Meeting for 2 years.
Right.
The sooner we can have MBTA communities dealt with, the sooner you never have to hear about it again.
Oh, I doubt it. I doubt it.
I doubt it too.
Yeah, I
but
doubt it
that's the ideal.
I'd never want to hear about
Just,
40B
I
again.
want to say something for 10 seconds. So I want to bring up outdoor lighting. I'm not going to suggest we do that right now. But I think, so for the next meeting, would it make sense for me to, I have some ideas. I'll come maybe circulate some ideas. And then
So
we can
Bill
talk.
is the chairman, we sets the agenda, so just have
Yeah.
to be able to put it on the
That
agenda.
would be great. That would be great.
For next.
Just for informative information, because the task before us for all of this is going to take a lot of time for a lot of different subjects. So I've been trying to help Jeanette down in the building department, who pretty much is a receptor of all the complaints that come in. So she has asked, this accessory use thing is something that she'd like to get taken care of. The chicken problem in town is something that she has to deal with that's driving her nuts, and there's no enforcement for. And the same thing, so anyway, on her agenda, those are things that could make her life a lot happier. So that's kind of, I said, I'll try to get that out as a priority to address.
So again, the proper channel to do that is
Right.
Bill as your chair. So
Right.
you tell him what you like out of the agenda and
Right.
he will try to
And
schedule
then
it.
we got a
Wasn't
pile of requests
Wasn't
from
the
the town
chicken thing
manager.
withdrawn at the last town meeting?
Yeah, or
It was, we've been dealing with chickens since I was on the planning board.
No,
That was probably
it's
5
always,
years
it's
ago.
always been an issue. I mean, it's
So,
not gonna go away.
anyway,
Why can't it just be simple, like, has to be confined to your property, period?
that's what it is now.
That is what,
That is
why was-
exactly what it is now.
same thing with the dogs.
No one wants to enforce it.
But the dogs actually is voice
I haven't
control,
heard the
so that's a
chicken
little
thing.
different.
What is the complaint?
The chickens are
Across
growing
the
on
People's property, people
Okay,
want
so it's
free
not a-
roam
it's not a
chickens.
noise
Free
right
range.
across
It's
the
not
road.
a noise thing.
Cause I have them, I keep them
The
locked up.
chickens
They don't
are-
go anywhere.
Right.
Well, it's a going off from one property to another.
So are you telling me it's already part of our zoning bylaw?
Yes.
Then why can't we enforce it?
Talk to Jan.
Because the building inspector has better things to do than go chase chickens, I guess.
There could be a problem with the bylaw on the enforcement too, so that we should.
We
look at
should,
that.
we have to look at
We have to look at
enforcement.
that.
Well,
There
one
might
of the
be an issue
problems-
with enforcement.
One of the problems that I've become aware of is other things in the regular bylaw
Right. Like,
that have been violated.
right, well, I think the lighting, just so, because I do want to run, the lighting bylaw, in my opinion, and you might decide different, I'm just giving you my opinion,
Sure.
does not need to be changed per se. It's the enforcement of the
Right.
law.
And I've
regulation.
experienced
And I
that.
think chicken is,
I
might be
agree.
the same thing.
This,
It
the
is.
enforcement is not only, right now, the only enforcement agency other than the police department is coming from the building department or sub-departments to the building department. And part of the issues is in enforcing them. So we have a thing in front of the planning board where people have adamantly in our face defied cease and desist orders. And I'm beginning to think that they're not being enforced, not because they're not trying to be enforced, but the town itself doesn't want to pay the legal costs to have them enforced. All right?
That's
Oh,
true.
no, that's
No?
not it.
No, Part of it
Okay,
is
this is
that-
maybe hearsay, so I don't know.
No, that's not
I
it
would
at
be,
all.
I would say it'd be more likely that how it should be enforced is not clearly defined, so people are not clear on who should be enforcing it. Not maybe like poorly defined, so gives some ambiguousness to it that just makes it easier for people to say, it's just too complicated, wait till the bylaw gets
Right.
changed. But
Well-
I don't think it's that we're like, oh, well, we don't want to take this or to go that. Plus, we are short-staffed in departments, building department and stuff, so we are working on that as a
Right.
town, working on that. So we have somebody who is available, especially with anything enforced by the building inspector, should improve once we have that position staffed correctly.
Yeah, because we've encountered that frustration.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know what the answer is, but maybe we need to engage an independent enforcement person. So when a
A bounty
violation,
hunter, maybe.
citation goes and somebody takes the citation and executes
But
it.
that, we really have that in place. If there's a violation and we know who the enforcement agent, we know what the fine is, and the fine's $5, and you don't pay the fine, then you can be served. We have agents to serve. We have constables in this town
Right,
that work, and that would be it. We don't need to add more layers to this. The problem is, nobody knows what the fine is. Nobody knows who should have been given that ticket, right? Because you can't send in a policeman to give somebody a citation for a chicken running away. That is not part of their duty.
I agree.
So
No,
then
they're
I
not gonna
can't
do it.
send the constable to get the $5 from them. okay? But once these laws are defined clearly, we clearly state if the fine comes from the building inspector, this person, whatever, they determine that the law has been broken.
Right.
The fine equals this, this, and this. It's sent out from the town. They give you a thing. You
All
don't
right.
pay. They do it. They don't do it. We'll send.
Maybe it's a
constable.
simple matter of just taking those violations and adding the cost, the burden of the cost of legal action has to be part of the
They should always, in my opinion, they should always, one, get first offense, second offense, third offense should always get higher, so people learn what the behavior they should be doing, and then if they learn and repeat it, then it should be, cost them more for repeating the offense. And then, yes, if you do, and there is, that does, if you have to send out a demand, the defense, let's say, was $25, but you have to send out a demand in the constable and whatever, it's already written into how we handle that. So that is taken care of. The problem is we don't have the first part clean, and that's what this committee is set up to help with that. One of the, that we've challenged you to do is to make sure, look at those laws and say, okay, if somebody broke this law, who would go out and ensure that, yes, the law is broken, and what is the fine? What is the fine for breaking the law, the bylaw?
Can I make a motion to accept the minutes from October 30th?
Second,
Any discussion?
So do we want to schedule another meeting?
Which one?
Yeah,
Yes.
we do.
Yes.
Can we?
Well, we need to vote on the minutes from October. We have a motion and we have a second. We all just say aye or
We
whatever.
have to do roll call. Could you-
Roll call, Natalie Cole, yes.
Greg Smith, yes.
This is it.
Veronica Cal, yes.
Michael Brown, yes.
Bill Cadigan, yes.
Okay. All right, passes then. Okay, when's the next meeting gonna be, please?
In
January.
January, do we want to we had done Mondays because it was planning board days.
That works.
So when is the next planning board meeting in January?
I think ours is the
8th?
18th, I think I have. I
That's
didn't
on
bring my
Thursday.
calendar
That's
with
That's
me.
the Thursday.
The 8th?
8th or the 8th is a Monday.
The 8th is a Monday, and that's when we've typically been meeting, at
Is-
4 PM.
What's the 18th in this month?
18th this month, it's,
That might be
next
that's
next
That's
week.
next Monday.
Yeah,
That's next
but
Monday.
that's a Monday. I think we have a planning board meeting this month, coming Monday.
On the
On
18th,
the 18th.
Mhm.
But, yeah.
that doesn't work.
No, January.
I have a schedule of all the planning board meetings for the next
Okay.
12 months.
Are you the 2nd and the 4th, or the 1st and the 3rd?
So either the 8th or the 22nd, I
The
think.
8th is on a Monday. The
Let's
8th is
do
on a
the
Monday. The 8th of January. Okay, at 4 PM?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I can do it, but I have a hard stop at like 5:45.
Okay. Give me a motion to
I
adjourn.
just need everybody to know, I work full-time, so I have to, I'm not gonna always be available for the 4 o'clock meetings. So.
I make a
but you
motion,
have
I make a
call.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second motion.
Natalie Cole, yes.
Greg Smith, yes.
Robert Darian, yes.
Michael Brown, yes.
Veronica Cal, yes.
All right.
Cadigan, yes.
Passes. Thank you. That completes the meeting. January 8th at 4, okay, 1600 hours. So